Hello everyone, welcome back to Global Government News. And in this article, it talks about the United Nations Law of the Sea Treaty, LOST. And I'm going to tie that in with two other articles that were posted, one today and then one about a week ago, talking about Clinton trying to stir up some trouble out in the Southeast Asia part of the world. And it basically has to do with trade and them using this law of the sea treaty to basically dominate or encroach, then dominate that part of the economic sector. So it says here 30 states will be encroached upon by Obama's executive order establishing the National Ocean Council for control over America's oceans, coastlines, and the Great Lakes. Under this new council, states' coastal jurisdictions will be subject to the United Nations Law of Sea Treaty, LOST, and the UN Agenda 21 program. America's oceans and coastlines will be broken into 9 regions. It says because of the decades of difficulty that collectivists have had trying to ratify the Law of Sea Treaty, or LOST, Obama is sneaking it through the back door by the way of this executive order establishing the council. Because LOST is a treaty, Obama's executive order is not constitutional, as treaty ratification requires 2/3 approval from the Senate. And John Holdren, Obama's science and technology advisor, is the co-chairman of this new council. Of course, I like how they included this. It says he is also a depopulation enthusiast and advocates sterilization by the way of using infertility drugs in the water and food, as well as forced abortions, which he describes in his educational book, Ecoscience, which is actually a textbook. And I wanted to, I know that was just regionally with the United States, that LOST treaty, but this right here, why Clinton cares so much about an Asian island chain, I thought was also important. It says Secretary of State Clinton is getting the U.S. involved in a complex international dispute over a chain of islands in the South China Sea. China and nearby Asia states have long made competing claims as to who controls the strategically located islands. This is speaking at a meeting of the Association of Southeast Asian Nation in Hanoi, Vietnam. Clinton said the U.S. has a, quote, national interest in resolving the issue peacefully. Here's what's going on, why it matters, and what could happen next, according to key journalists. It says China's aggressive agenda. Quote, for decades, China has sparred with the Southeast Asian nations over the control of the 200 tiny islands. And it says the New York Times' Mark Lander explains, quote, China's maritime ambitions have expanded along with its military and economic muscle. It has long laid claim to islands in the South China Sea because of rich in oil and natural gas deposits. And here's the kicker. And it has put American officials on notice that it will not brook foreign interference in waters off southeastern coasts, which have used as core interests of sovereignty. And then if you flip to the Asian Times Online, U.S. goes fishing for trouble. This is posted July 29th, 2010, which is tomorrow, which is today. But it says United States Secretary of State Clinton roiled China at the recent Association of Southeast Asian Nations foreign ministers meeting in Hanoi by stating that the United Nations had a, quote, national interest in freedom of navigation, open access to the Asians' maritime commons, and respect for international law in the South China Sea. She also expressed support for a collaborative diplomatic process on the matter of disputes in the South China Sea. And it says down here, which I thought was important, a certain amount of media energy was expanded to frame Clinton's remarks as a response to a disturbing expansion of China's definition of its core interests beyond Tibet. It says there is a good deal of evidence to indicate that China is not trying to ratchet up tensions in the South China Sea, at least not vis-a-vis its southern neighbors. Rather, it appears that the United States is once again using a contentious issue to exacerbate a problem, isolate China diplomatically, and to make room for an expanded role for Washington as a protector of the interests of China's smaller and more ambitious neighbors, while diverting attention from certain provocative U.S. nations. Look at this. The United States is very interested in intelligence gathering to monitor movements of submarines from the massive new People's Liberation Army Navy plan near Sanya and Hainan, and to map the South China seafloor to make the task of detecting, in the event of conflict, destroying Chinese subs more easily. And here's the last point that I'm going to make. It says the United States exploits a loophole in the law of the Sea Treaty, a treaty that the U.S. has not ratified, which, while restricting unauthorized economic exploitation, permits peacetime military transits through EEZs by other countries. In other news, only 29% of Germans support Merkel. Public support for German Chancellor Angela Merkel and her Conservative Party has dipped to less than 30% for the first time since 2006. Also in the news for Germany, German plane crashes in Afghanistan, and this is from today as well. A German reconnaissance plane has crashed in northern Afghanistan amid the rising death toll of foreign troops in the war-torn country. The aircraft reportedly went down in Gahal Zal district in Kunduz province. German sources have confirmed the incident and say that the remains of the plane have not yet been found. Meanwhile, the Taliban claim they have destroyed the plane and are holding its wreckage. This is the fourth German plane to go down in Afghanistan this year. And the Taliban have reportedly shot down several NATO helicopters over the past month in parts of Afghanistan. Germany has about 5,000 soldiers in the relatively peaceful northern Afghanistan, making it the third largest foreign contingent after the U.S. and U.K. And I thought this was kind of funny. France declares war against Al-Qaeda. France has declared war on Al-Qaeda and matched its fighting words with the first attack on a base camp of the terror network's North African branch of the terror network killed a French aid worker. The declaration of attack marked a shift in strategy for France, usually discreet about its behind-the-scenes battle against terrorism. So in other words, they get to justify and legitimize the cracking down and the big brother state and the police state and all that good stuff. And for our Big Brother police portion of this video series, city police still using Terror Act to bother photographers just when you thought it was safe to go snapping. And this is, well, it's kind of an old article. I just noticed this right now from May 11th. But still, hey, if you didn't know about it, it's still news, right? Just when you thought it was safe to go snapping, City Police, London police proved they still haven't got the memo. Yesterday, it was in the turn of Grant Smith to feel the heavy hand of the law. And it says... security guard asserted that Smith could not take photos of the building. Smith pointed out the security guard was wrong. The police were called. Initially, Smith was relieved. And I guess they use this Section 442 of the Terrorism Act 2000. Controversial law permits police to stop any individuals for the purpose of preventing terrorism. While police officers act under this section do not require reasonable grounds for a search, they may do so where there are grounds for suspecting the photography is linked to terrorist activity. Yeah, so if you're taking pictures of cameras, surveillance cameras all throughout the cities like they are here in Chicago, or if you're taking pictures of chemtrails, you are suspect. Oh, and let's not forget, you can't take a picture of the private Federal Reserve building. Otherwise, you will have Gestapo come out and tell you you can't take a picture even if you're not on the property. This article is titled, UK's Governor's Phone and Net Snooping Hits Record High. We have ears everywhere. This is from July 28, 2010. It says the expansion in official snooping on communication records has continued with a record number of requests last year for details of who is talking to whom. And it says, in the 12 months to the 31st December, authorities made 525,130 requests to phone companies and internet providers for communication data. The Interception Commissioner, Sir Paul Kennedy, revealed in his annual report. I cannot give the precise reason for this, but there is evidence that more and more police forces have to investigate internet-related crime, including pedophile rings and the requirements to obtain communication data in these types of cases. And that's always a reason. So, you know, if you're against this, then you're for pedophiles or pedophilia, right? It says the government has announced a review to remove some surveillance powers from local authorities. Right. And it says official use of communication data seems to increase despite the coalition's pledge to end the storage of phone and internet records without good reason. This is from GazetteExtra.com or the Associated Press, titled "What's in Your Phone App or Phone Application More Than You'd Like It to Know." New research shows. This is from July 28th. It says your smartphone applications are watching you much more closely than you might like. It says look out. A mobile phone security forum scanned nearly 3,000 free applications from Apple iPhone and phones built around Google incorporated Android software. It found that many of the secretly pulled sensitive data off users' phones and shipped them off to third parties without notification. It says there's a major concern that the bubbling up in privacy and security circles. So the data can include full details of contacts, their pictures, text messages, internet, and search histories. And if you check out some of the cutting edge radio show videos, I've covered this before. So thank you.